Alright guys, moving on to 1995's Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers, directed by Joe Chappelle. This is the theatrical cut. I will have a video right after this with the producer's cut, mostly just with the differences and stuff because they are vastly different movies. Like, I haven't seen the producer's cut in years. And I went online to find Halloween 6 because it's not streaming anywhere. And I thought it would be a lot harder to find the producer's cut than the theatrical cut. And when I went online, I found Halloween 6 and ended up being the producer's cut. And I said, oh, alright. So now I gotta go find the theatrical cut, which I did, and now we will talk about it. This film holds a lot of nostalgia for me. Just like all the first 6 movies. And yeah, the whole Thorn cult stuff is stupid as all hell, and it's ridiculous, and I never liked the whole brother and sister relationship. Laundry's done. Never liked the whole brother relationship with Michael and Laurie. So I kind of just ignore that. And the same with this movie. With the whole Thorn thing, I just kind of accept it and just try to just ignore it, which nostalgia I'm sure plays a big role in this. But we have George P. Wilbur back as Michael Myers, who played him in part 4, which I'm so happy he came back for this because I really like his performance in 4 and in this. And this is just a dark film. Like, that's one thing I love about Halloween 6 is the tone and the atmosphere is so dark. Like this, just like Halloween 4, how it has like a dark atmosphere, like I said in that. Same thing here. Like, Michael is pissed off. Michael is angry. Michael is brutal in this movie. And I absolutely love that. Are there things in this movie that I don't care for? Absolutely. Like 100%. But just between the tone and the atmosphere and Michael, and I like the mask in this movie. Like, much more than in 5. And this is one of my favorite masks in the series. And just with Loomis, and it's so disheartening seeing this movie every time I rewatch this, just knowing that Loomis died before the film came out, and just seeing him in this, like, he's so old, and it sucks. It really sucks seeing Donald Pleasance like that. And even like his delivery is slow. And then they explain it in the producer's cut, which I don't know why they cut it out of this, but I'll save that for the producer's cut. So we have Jamie Lloyd giving birth, and I don't know why, well, I do know why, but with Danielle Harris, she wanted to come back, and she didn't even ask for much. Like, it's not like she's in the movie that much. I think she asked for like a few $1,000s. And Dimension Films didn't want to pay her a few $1,000s to bring her back. Fucking so stupid. So Jamie gives birth to this baby. And then we have Tommy Doyle, Paul Rudd in this movie. Paul Rudd is so different in this movie than the Paul Rudd we know, like, going forward. Like, he's so awkward. He's so weird. Like, I love his performance in this. And it's, like I said, a totally different Paul Rudd than the one that we know today. And I really like his portrayal as Tommy. I know they tried to get the original actor who played Tommy in the first Halloween back for this. And for some reason, they couldn't get a hold of him. And he kind of regrets it. And he wishes that he was, available to be in this. So I don't know why they couldn't reach him. But it is what it is. So then we have the voiceover by Tommy about Michael's history and everything. And then we see the thorn symbol on the baby. And like I said, this is fucking dark, this movie. Like, just, you see a baby there with fucking blood being drawn on its chest with the thorn symbol. And a lot of dark stuff in this movie, which I love. And we have the nurse who tries to help Jamie escape with the baby. And then she ends up escaping. And then Michael just takes the nurse and just fucking takes her head and just shoves it and impales it onto the hook. Awesome kill. Like, we have John Carl Buechler here doing the effects in this movie, which is another plus. Like I said in Halloween 5, but they had K and B effects and they hardly used them. Like, no good gore, no good kills or anything really in a Halloween 5. There's a few, but from K and B, you would expect them to utilize them a lot more. John Carl Buechler does a great job in this movie. And then he ends up, Jamie gets in the truck and steals the truck from the trucker. That was a lot of trucks in a row. And then we have Michael twists his neck around, his bone like snaps out of his neck. Awesome kill, awesome effects. And then we meet the Strodes, who are relatives of Laurie, the family who adopted Laurie. So we have more Strodes living in the Meyer house here. And Danny, the child of Kara, is hearing voices. And yeah, it's like I said, it's fucking stupid. Everything to do with the Cult of Thorn and the Thorn tattoo and all of that, I don't care for it one bit. But it is what it is. Then he's hearing voices telling him to kill, and later we find out that Michael was hearing voices when he was a kid in his room telling him to kill. And I'll get into that. Then then we find out that Halloween is banned in this town, which makes sense. Like, it's been banned since 1989, when Michael and Jamie were supposedly killed. And it does make sense. Like, everything that's been happening on all these Halloweens in this town, completely warranted that they would want to ban Halloween. And then we have the kids in the town in Haddonfield that are trying to revolt against that. And they're trying to get Halloween unbanned and take Halloween back for the town, for them. And then we have Jamie leaving the baby in the bathroom at the truck stop. And she ends up having Michael chase her to this farm. Then he impales her on this, I don't even know what the fuck it is. I don't farm. So I don't know what equipment this is, but it's farming equipment. That's what it is. And she ends up impaling her on that, and her saying that you can't have the baby, and then he turns the equipment on and it just like fucking destroys her insides. That's cool too, that scene. And then we meet the rest of the Strodes, and Kara gets slapped by Papa John. What a dick this character is. Like, this might be one of the biggest assholes in the whole franchise. Is John, the fucking father here, Kara's father. Cannot stand this character. And then Danny fucking pulls a knife out and gets right up to his stomach with a knife, like protecting his fucking mother. And he also hears the voice right before that saying, kill for him. So he's like, yo, you ain't fucking with me. Like, I'm gonna be the next Michael. I'm gonna have the Thorn tattoo brought on me, the cult brought on me. Don't you fuck with my mother. And then Tommy ends up finding the baby, which no one was in that bathroom at all in like that whole day that took place. Like, the baby was just silent the entire time, and no one went into this bathroom and heard a baby crying until Tommy got there. I don't know, that's stupid. And he ends up naming the baby Steven, which I think is a little cute because Paul Rudd is credited in this as Paul Stephen Rudd. So, I mean, it's spelled differently, but I have to think that maybe they got the name for the baby from Paul Rudd's middle name. Possibly, who knows. And then we meet Mrs. Strode is visited by Loomis, and Loomis tells her all about Michael and everything that happened in the house there, which they had no idea that they were living in Michael Myers' house. The only one who knew was John, the father, because he's a real estate agent, and his brother wasn't able to sell the house, and that's why they were able to get the house so cheap and everything, and he never told the rest of the family whose house they were moving into, which is fucked up, man. Then she ends up running for her life, and Michael is in chase, and then he ends up taking the axe and just axing her to death, and you get the blood spraying on the white cloth or whatever towel that's hanging there. That looks really cool. I like that whole scene. Then why are all the fucking candles on Tommy's desk? Like, I had to record these videos out of order, so I did H2O first. And I said in that, I don't know if it's just a personal thing with me with candles in movies, that if there's more than a few, I hate it. I don't know what it is, but I mentioned H2O, so you hear it again in there. But he has candles on his desk, like 4 or 5 of them, and he has a fucking light right above it. So why even have the candle? I'm not even getting to the fucking candles, man. He has a light. And then we meet Mrs. Blankenship, which Tommy is living in this whole, it's like a boarding house across the street from the Myers house. And Mrs. Blankenship is the old woman who owns the house, and Tommy lives in like the attic or some shit. So his life has been destroyed by Michael. Like, obviously, like his whole childhood has been destroyed by him after that Halloween night in the original. And just, you can tell that the whole rest of his life has been fucked by Michael. He's completely obsessed with Michael, just like Loomis is obsessed with Michael. And he's been spending all these years trying to figure out what drives Michael, why is he evil, it's like, are people controlling him, which I don't know how he jumped to that conclusion, but I don't know, who knows with all this stupid cult shit. And Miss Blankenship says that she babysat Michael. Now, in the first Halloween, we don't see Michael being babysat by anybody. We always assumed Judith was watching Michael. So I don't know where that whole line came from, that she was babysitting little Mikey Myers, lived across the street. I don't know what that has to do with anything, or where that came from, because Judith was always, she was home with Michael. So she was not being babysat by some old bitch. We know that. So I don't know what that is. But I know the name Blankenship is mentioned in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. So it's cool kind of that they took that just name without a character and gave it to a character in this. But a character that did not babysit Michael when he was little. And then says to Kara that Michael was hearing voices too in the house, and that's what drove him to kill Judith and everything, and kick-started his whole notorious serial killing career. And we get a great shot of Michael outside the window, like when she's talking about Halloween and everything. It says the boogeyman, it says, and was talking about the voices, and you see like the lightning outside the window, and you see Michael standing there. That's a really cool shot. Then earlier, we have Dr. Wynn, Terrence Wynn, which I don't think probably more than half of the people who saw this movie when it came out, or even nowadays who watches this movie, I don't think more than half of the people notices that Wynn is the doctor that Loomis is talking to outside Smith's Grove in the original Halloween. Obviously, it's a completely different actor and everything, but I don't think a lot of people picked up on that, unless they're like hardcore Carpenter Halloween fans and know that movie inside and out. Because, like I said, completely different actor, and this is like fucking 5 movies later. So the whole Wynn thing, I mean, it's a cool little callback for people who do know and do remember that character for the brief little scene that he's in the original. But I really don't think a lot of people picked up on that connection. And then we have John comes home and he gets electrocuted and his head explodes, and it was driving me nuts because I said I watched the producer's cut first. And I said in some video a long while ago that electrocutions in slasher films just don't do it for me. And I said, unless it's like something cool, like when a head explodes, and I mentioned Halloween 6. And when I watched the producer's cut, his head didn't explode. So I said, but am I really that off? Like, did I really forget, like, and just completely misremembered, like, this guy's head exploding in this movie? And I was referencing this movie talking about head explosions from electricity, and now it's not there. And then when I watched the theatrical cut, I said, no, it's there. Fucking, I know what I'm talking about. Like, the producer's cut takes most of the gore out of the movie, which, again, I'll get to with that. But then we have Barry Sims, the dickhead radio host, who reminds me of like Howard Stern. And this is the mid-90s, so I'm sure they were trying to like convey that and try to have him portray a character kind of like that, because I don't know, he just has a Stern vibe to him. And he gets stabbed to death. And then we get the scene with the girl with It's Raining Red. It's Raining Red, Mommy. I've always loved that scene. I've always thought that line was so creepy of just her standing under the tree and the blood falling down on her and her just saying it's raining red, and then saying it's warm, and then Tommy gets there and he looks up and he sees Barry Sims just strung up with the lights and stuff, and he falls down. Something about those lines of it's raining red. I always love those lines. Absolutely. Then we have Tim showering at the Myers house, at his house, after fucking his girlfriend Beth. And for some reason, I always just expect Jason to crash through the glass for the shower and crush his head against the wall, like in Friday Part 4. I don't know if it's just Tim has like long hair, and when he's showering like that, like his hair comes down like the same length as, I can't remember all these fucking names, the one in the shower in fucking Friday Part 4. And I always just expect Jason to just crash through the shower door and just crush his face against the wall. But this is not Friday the 13th, it's Halloween 6. And he ends up getting his throat slit. Then Beth gets killed while Kara's watching from across the street through the telescope. And then the whole sequence from Kara seeing Danny walking to the Myers house all the way up until they get back to Tommy's house is fucking awesome. That whole sequence is great. Like, it's so tense, it's so atmospheric, it's just, and then when Michael starts going after them, I loved just that whole sequence. So then it feels a lot like Carpenter's original Halloween, and even more so in the producer's cut, which I'll get to. But the whole scene of them, her and Danny running back to Tommy's house and looking back, and we keep getting shots of Michael getting closer and closer. It feels just like with Laurie running back to Tommy's house, you know, in the original. Like, absolutely. Then Kara and Danny end up banging on the door as Michael gets closer and closer. Said that, stop reading the same shit. Then the baby's missing, and we find out that Blankenship, the old lady, is in on the cult of Thorn, and she has a knife she holds up to Kara and the old woman has the baby. And then the other henchman of Wynn's comes into the room, and Kara just jumps out the window, like just nowhere else to go. So she just fucking jumps out the window. Then they get taken to Smith Grove, and Tommy and Loomis are drugged, and they wake up, and Tommy's like, I feel like I'm drugged, and he's like, we were. And he's like, this is Wynn's game, I know we're just going to play it. And they end up going back to Smith's Grove, and then Kara is locked in a room, in room 237, which is a nice little call to The Shining there. And then Tommy's look when he's breaking the knob on the door to get Kara out, I love that. Like, I love Paul Rudd's expressions in that when he sees Michael for the first real time. And it's just, you can see, like, he did it so well. Like, you could see on his face shock and horror and trauma, and like, you could see it all. You could see just him thinking, like, he went his whole life obsessed with Michael because he ruined his fucking childhood. He ruined his life. And you can see all of that on Tommy's face until he snaps himself back out of it, and he breaks the doorknob out with the fire extinguisher. I love that whole little scene there with Tommy. Awesome stuff. And then Michael just kills everybody. Like, all the fucking doctors in that room. He takes the machete and he just starts slicing and dicing and carving up everybody in that room. And that gives them time to grab the baby and grab Danny and try to escape and get out of there. And then I love how Michael takes the guy's head who's running, like, who got out of the room, and he ends up just squeezing his face through the gate bars until, like, the whole gate just fucking collapses and the head's smushed on this guy. Awesome stuff. Then they go into the room, and there's a bunch of fetuses, like in tanks. I don't know what that's about. I have no clue what that has to do with anything. So, fetuses, they're there. I don't know. Then they end up, and Tommy ends up trying to trick Michael with saying that the baby's his. Starts to give the baby to him, but then we hear this baby Steven cry from a different direction, and Michael realizes it's a trick. And Tommy ends up injecting him just with a bunch of needles. I don't know what the fuck's in them, and doesn't really seem to do anything, like at first. Then he just beats the fuck out of him. Like, Tommy gets his revenge, man. He gets to beat the living shit out of Michael with that pipe, and I adore that. I absolutely love that whole scene. And like I said, like, this fucking guy ruined Tommy's life. Absolutely ruined his childhood, ruined his adulthood. He's been obsessed with Michael ever since, and this is him taking out all of that on him. And he absolutely wrecks Michael, which is fucking awesome. Absolutely love that. Then Loomis ends up getting them out of there, and they say to come with him. And Loomis says he has unfinished business there, and he ends up going inside. And just, I don't care for the ending here. We see Michael's mask on the floor with a needle next to it, and we hear Loomis screaming. And that's the end of the movie. So I don't know if Loomis is killed, or what happens with Michael, or why his mask is off, or any of that. But the producer's cut is completely different with the ending. And a lot of other stuff. Like I said, it's like a completely different movie. But the whole injecting him with the chemicals or whatever, that's something no one's really ever tried. Why not take like 20, 30 hits of LSD and just shove it in Michael's mouth and just have him trip balls for like a day or two? Like, he'll be walking down the street like, it's a beautiful day and I can't help myself from smiling. Like, he'd be happy as shit. He'd be just tripping balls. The sun has a face on it, like a happy face. Like, no one's ever tried that. Drug Michael. Why not try that? Like, we've tried everything else. We've tried burning him to death. We've tried fucking blowing him up. We've tried shooting him 1,000,000 times. Everything. Just fucking inject him with some fucking LSD or fucking some mescaline or something, and just have him hallucinating out of his mind. And just have Michael Myers fucking the trip of Michael Myers, something like that, and just have him just tripping his balls off for the entire movie. And maybe he won't, maybe it'll take away his urge to kill. Who knows? But next up, the producer's cut. I'm not going to go through the entire movie again, but just like the major changes and stuff, because there are a lot of them. So be right back with the producer's cut of Halloween 6, The Curse of Michael Myers. Take care.